Want to welcome everyone to the Centerville City Council meeting being held here on January 18th, and I meant that when I said it. It looks like January 18th rather than March 18th out there, doesn't it? So, all right, being held on March 18th, 2025 here at Centerville City Hall. We thank you, those that have come, both from the public, the staff, the council, and those that could be or may be joining online as well too. Let's do a little roll call before to make sure we can conduct business tonight, starting with Councilman Summerhays.
Summerhays present.
Heyman present.
Hurst present.
Plummer present.
Meekum present.
Thank you, council members, for being here. We appreciate it, and thank you, staff, like I said, and members of the public. Let's start with the legislative prayer thought by Council Member Spencer Summerhays.
Thanks, Mayor. This past week and in a few weeks, I have the opportunity or had the opportunity to have some celebrations, and it was related to work and actually also my schooling, but the celebrations were related to some accomplishments of peers and some other individuals, and it made me start thinking about mentorship and people in my life that have been mentors and how much they've meant to me on a personal level. So this first one was last week. It was a work one honoring the career and life of individuals that have been at our company for many, many years, both having since retired and those that are still with our company. But it also made me think of beyond individuals there at my office who were mentors to me, mentors outside of my workplace. So teachers when I was younger, whether that was in school or grad school, which is one of the celebrations I'll be heading to, or in my personal life, or even here in this civic setting. I've learned a lot from fellow council members, other council members from other cities when I've been able to participate in different activities. It's been a great opportunity for me. And I view mentorship as an opportunity to learn soft skills as opposed to technical skills. Soft skills are something we can really only learn and develop by kind of seeing others do things in person. We don't really learn them very well via Zoom or Teams or remote work as much as I do it on my own now. But those are the attributes that require interpersonal interactions, communication, teamwork, problem solving, time management, compromise, negotiation, relationships, and just emotional intelligence, I think, all fall under those categories. So I think about our city and the mentorship opportunities that we have. I can only imagine how many people have felt like Mike Carlson has been an amazing mentor, or Chief Child was an amazing mentor for our police staff. You know, Mike Eggett gets to be a mentor to Sydney and maybe others in our city. I think there's just all these great opportunities. I don't know if Lisa had a summer intern that we budgeted or gave her a budget money for, but you know, there's those mentorship opportunities, and I think the thought is that we can show humility on both sides of it, that if you are the mentor, humility that you may be able to learn from somebody younger than you, and also that you're not afraid of somebody maybe coming up and learning just like you and fill your shoes at some point. And those that are younger, humility to learn from somebody's past mistakes or past experiences. So I hope that as we, as a city and as elected officials, look, we can be mentors and still be menteed, as it says. Mayor, I wasn't prepared for this, but I did notice Council Member Heyman is exercising, it looks like, some First Amendment rights, and that's been also something that's been on my mind a lot, more so in the context as a council member having taken the oath of office. I think as I've served my time here, it's meant more and more to me. I was at a Utah Hockey Club game, and as we sang the national anthem, that weight of taking the oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Utah is something that I don't take lightly and is something that is extremely important to me. And obviously, we have freedom of speech, not from speech, and we have checks and balances. And Mayor, you're an excellent example of probably being very gratuitous in your allowance of public comment periods, and I think that's fantastic. But that has also been wasn't going to be something I mentioned, but appreciate frankly, our responsibility and our opportunity to protect and defend the constitutions, both of our state and our nation. So those are my thoughts tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Councilmember Sunderhead. If you'd all rise with me and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This next part of the meeting is the open session. This is a chance to where anyone can come forward and speak what might be on their mind. We do not have any public hearing matters tonight, so I will not tell you to hold off if your comments, if you're commenting on the public hearing matter. But we just ask that you be mindful and considerate of people's times, and if you have something to say, try and condense your comments to 3 minutes per person by hitting the main points. Now realize that in the open session, if it's a new topic, something we haven't discussed before, we haven't put it on the agenda, so we will take it under advisement. If it's something that we want to get back to an agenda item another time, or call you back if you make something, if it's something that you know that doesn't necessarily need to be agended. So with those thoughts in mind, the open session is now available. Just state your name and where you're from if you're so inclined to speak.
Mr. Mayor, seeing no one come forward, I do have this flag in front of me, and some of y'all may be wondering why it's here. Could I take this opportunity during the open session, about a minute, to explain why I have this flag in front of me?
You introduce who you're from, where you're from, who you are, where you're from, if you're doing it.
Absolutely. Shaylin Heyman, resident of Centerville for about 20 years, and I am on the city council. Yeah, I wondered if anybody would wonder why this flag was here in front of me, and the answer is I am exercising my constitutionally protected First Amendment rights to display any flag I want in a prominent location, on government property, where the flag is easily visible. And if the governor signs a law into effect that prevents local government entities from displaying certain types of flags, if that law does go into effect, I do intend to display this or other flags at every city council meeting going forward. And I do that because under that law, I, Shaylin Heyman, am not a government entity. I am an individual, and I'm an elected representative, and I have every constitutional right to do so. And I would invite and encourage other elected municipal representatives throughout our state to do the same, because protecting constitutional rights matters, and that's true even when the constitutional right is something as simple as displaying a pride flag in City Hall. Thank you for giving me that opportunity, Mr. Mayor.
All righty, you're welcome. Anybody else? So open session. Okay, with that in mind, we'll move on from the open session. If any of you came here for a presentation, that's citizen recognition. One of those citizens we were going to recognize got sick, so we were going to delay that for a couple of weeks. So we will, we always look forward to those type of things, but we'll skip forward to the drainage audit discussion. This is a process that's been going on for quite a while. We had a couple of weeks ago during our work session, presentation on it. We have two items tonight, the drainage audit discussion and drainage rate increase discussion. What else do we need to say on the drainage audit discussion? Nate, anything?
I did not have anything prepared tonight. I don't believe any other staff did either. I think this is more of an opportunity for you to reaffirm that staff is moving in the right direction that you intended, and that we're interpreting the code correctly, or provide any feedback to the contrary. And certainly we're welcome to answer any questions you might have.
Nate, just as a follow-up from the meeting 2 weeks ago, Brant did say that, and I'm repeating it only because there was some questions about what latitude the council had given staff in terms of working through repay or payment of the audit fees. And one of those was, hey, if wishes were fishes, we would have maybe looked back at this and said, give businesses 4 years for repayment. And it sounded like, based on what Brant had represented, that he felt like the council had given him that full authorization.
Yeah, so the initial authorization, and correct me if I'm wrong, was if they paid up front, they would get a 15% discount. If they needed up to a year of payment plans, they would get it was 10%, right? Or did we start with 5%? Can't remember. And then the initial option was, I think we started at, did we start at 5 gallon?
10%, yeah, it says here in the staff report, 10% for the period of 12 months.
Because then in the initial letter that went out said that if they needed longer than that, then they would have to pay interest. And then if you recall, we came back after those letters had been sent out, and that's when council authorized 15% if they paid before December 31st of 2024, the 10% if they needed that year payment plan. And then if they needed longer than that, we would work with them and not charge interest on that payment. So we've given those options. We've talked with those customers on the phone. We've explained the discount and said if you need longer, you let us know how long, and we'll try to work with you.
Thanks, Nate.
If there's, I know, so December 31st, so if somebody came and paid it in full now, they would not get 15% off? Maybe
They get 10.
they get
Yeah,
10?
by the direction we were given, technically not.
Okay, I'm just wondering, is anyone on the council amenable to maybe allowing that to happen at this point, maybe for the next month or two? Since there have been some people waiting to hear if we would change our decision, or, I mean, could we give them just a little bit more time to get that in if they want to pay it and get the 15% off?
So let me ask, before I answer at least my opinion on that, Lisa, does that,
Yeah, I think any of the scenarios now are tricky and problematic. I mean, because we didn't
yes,
offer
because
that to other
you've
people.
represented it and somebody else has paid, and then they've said, well, I would have waited for 3 months. So I don't know if you make that decision, how do you go back to those that did pay in advance to get that 15% discount? Is there
I don't necessarily,
a practical way to do that?
I'm with Gina. I'm okay with giving it to them. I realize that some people pushed in order to get that, but they still did get that discount. So I don't think we have to do more.
here's kind of why I'm bringing that up, is because Rick Bangeter, who's in the audience, was frustrated that we did not meet and discuss this item in December, and then we've kind of drug it out. And so I'm just trying to be fair to those who were like hoping to have this addressed in December and might have been able to pay. I'm just saying, can we just give them one more
Right, so I'm just,
small
and
window?
I'm thinking through like the mechanics of it and making sure that we're above board, like from a legal perspective. I don't
Yeah, for
disagree with
sure,
your,
for
I don't
sure.
disagree with the
No,
approach.
we need to make-
I'm trying to be problem
Yeah.
solver with you, Gina, on that one.
Yeah.
That's why I'm hoping that if we can give Lisa a second, maybe to, or maybe Nate, like practically speaking, how do you, and this may be on the fly a little bit, but for those that have already paid the 15, or before December and got the 15% discount, is there that 3-month window where there's this weirdness created?
Can I throw in one additional thought? With regard to the additional time frame that we've already given staff leeway, there is some value, some time value to money. So if I'm able to keep this money and pay it out over time, as opposed to having to pay it all up front, they are gonna still, anyone who takes a payment plan is still gonna get some value, right? That time value benefit of the money. So maybe
That's a
that,
fair point.
maybe that addresses the concern without opening the door to make people feel like, who came up with the money in advance, right, that they're not being treated fairly.
Is there any indication that someone would feel that way? For example, when we brought this up in the work group session, I was trying to get at, like, not that we wanted to necessarily go refund money to people who had paid up front, but just trying to find out, and it appeared that there were people who were just like, well, we've paid it, so we just want to move on. Like, it didn't seem like that was, I'm just trying to be fair to those that were thinking they would be heard in December and then weren't, and then we put it off until, our work group session was the beginning of March. I just, this is we all know this has been a tough situation. I don't want to be unfair to anyone who's already paid, but also, if it were me, I'd be going, well, I'm just glad it's paid and I'm done with it, but
Yeah, and
I don't know that I would.
My question is, I don't want to, no good deed goes unpunished type of a scenario.
I agree with you. I
Because we
totally
don't
agree
know
with you
who
on
didn't
that.
show up that did pay, that finds out about it and is upset.
But if somebody did find out about it and they came and they wanted a year to pay, and we're giving the same discount to the others, I'm fine to refund their money and let them make it back in the rest of the year. I mean, it would already need to be,
I don't
I
think
don't-
Gina's talking about the rest of the year. She's saying to put out the
I'm
the
actually-
15%.
So I
Are
am
you
talking
pushing out
about
a few more months, or?
In the staff report, we have items 1, 2, and 3. Item 1 is if paid in full, the customer may receive a 15% discount off the amount due. I would like to also suggest that the period of 12 months, that we give them 12 months from now, if they haven't started paying, so that they can get the 10% off. And then, yes, if they want 4 years, we should give them 4 years to repay it, but they're not going to get any discounts.
But on number 1, Gina, to what date? What's the expiration date of the 15%?
Well, I
Are you
think that's
thinking?
that's what I'm asking
Okay.
you guys. Yes, I would like to see us give something, even if it's just a little bit of time, but let these people know who have not paid, hey, if you get it paid, you can still have the 15% off through April 15th. I don't know, whatever the council feels comfortable.
many-
I didn't mean tax day, but you know what I
How many
mean.
are we talking about?
So there are 23 accounts. But some of those accounts have the same ownership. So I think we're talking about 8 different owners, but 23 accounts.
We'll just give them another.
For how much total combined with those?
That was in my presentation. I have to go grab my notes.
Sorry, I was just.
I can get that to you. That's all
This
I
right.
was just
presentation?
Ballpark.
I want to say.
Do you want me to hand this to you? You remember which?
I can grab it. One second, I'll grab it.
I'm sorry, I was just looking for a ballpark idea.
I think, from my perspective, I'm agreeing with Gina and Robin in that this feels like we should allow some extra time for the folks that did not pay because of some belief that we were going to be addressing the issue in December. I appreciate the people that, or entities that paid in advance, but I don't think that if Lisa can't give us a real legal reason as to not to give the 15%, then perhaps it would be better to just be able to give that 15% discount. And I would say I would be open to having it longer rather than a shorter amount of time.
So, how much, Nate?
Just over 119,000 is remaining.
The issue is being fair and equitable to your ratepayers. So that's, you know, we can't allow some ratepayers to pay this and some pay a different fee. But, so what I'm saying is if you do it, like, we extended the fee increase. So you can extend these options to March 31st or whatever, but the issue is, are you also willing to say, fine, but if you already paid and you would actually like some money back and you want to pay it over time, are we opening it up for them? Because that's making it fair for everyone. Rather than just saying, those that waited, we're now going to have them have the same thing, even though you came up with money in December.
And I'm okay with that, Lisa. I'm all right with giving them the extra time.
So it would just be an extension to whatever day you want to say. Obviously, you need to give them some time to come up with the money and for us to notify them of these new options. But it would be, the original options have been extended to X date, including if you want the 12 months. The 12 months is from X date.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with that. I mean, Brian, when you say Eugene and Robin, I'm not excluded. I'm not opposed to it, so I don't know that Councilmember Heyman is either. And I would, based off what Lisa's recommending, you extend the options, and is it April 30? You know, and then that's your new delineation date for that. And so if you wanted the 15% now, go ahead through April 30th for a delineation date, and then the clock for the 12 months also goes through April 30th of 2026.
Get your payments lined up.
Correct.
By
And then if someone comes back and says, I paid in advance and I'd rather do something else, as complicated as it is with Nate, and Nate may be churning inside hoping that nobody comes back, but it's accounting and we can figure it out. I think we allow for that based off of Lisa's recommendation. I think that's a helpful recommendation, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah,
I would agree.
I agree with Lisa's thoughts on that, that we need to be as equitable and fair as we can be, but also give these people who patiently waited, you know, we know that we did not handle this completely, maybe as easily for them as we maybe should have.
Yeah. Lessons learned. We've talked about it.
Lessons learned, but at the same time too, I do feel like they deserve a little bit of, you know, I know there's a lot of frustration about this from our business owners, and I want them to, I'm sure they're still not happy about this, but I want them to know that we've heard them and that we are sensitive to the fact that this has been an extremely difficult situation for them.
So, Kevin, can you come up? In this presentation on the drainage audit discussion, there was many pages on, you could stay here too, Nate. There's many pages on future projects. I'm kind of curious to know, of the money that's come in on the back payments, those back payments, they're going back 4 years. Is it going to affect crucial projects that we have to do if we didn't have that money?
Well, as you might recall, so the original recommendation was a doubling of the rate. And so, you know, council had several work sessions. They only felt comfortable with a 50% increase. So we're really still quite a ways behind. You know, if you really wanted to catch up, Nate could put that into the equation, and maybe you would need a 50% rate increase, but you might need another 25 and then another 25 the next couple of years. So I just bring that up because really the 50% rate increase was only half of what was recommended.
And staff
by
did a
the-
good job of elaborating that, saying
And
originally
and
it
we
was
supported
100%
that.
and said, okay, let's see what grants we can get, let's see what
Yeah.
county contributions we can get.
But-
And if it doesn't come through, then we have that discussion again.
But also, let me just clarify with you, Kevin, do we have any street projects on the agenda for this upcoming year? Or are we still waiting for money to come into the drainage fund to be able to do
So
needed street projects?
That's a good question. We've held off for a couple of years on street projects. We've put those on hold. We do have a project on 4th East that is a WFRC grant project that we have decided to move forward with next year. I think that's fiscal year '26. Cameron and the staff today was looking at some different iterations of how we might be able to handle the drainage to try to minimize the amount of drainage funds that would be used. They've come up with some solutions that we might not have to spend too much, but
But
typically-
when you
Go
say
ahead.
that, is that a kicking the can down the road approach a little bit? Essentially,
in
are you
this
saying
case,
we're gonna
it's-
delay the projects until we have funds that we would have otherwise done in 2025 that we're now gonna do in 2026?
In this case, it's more of a kind of a minimalistic approach. Let's take, for example, Summerhill Lane. A developer comes into town, we make them put inlet boxes every 300 feet, every 400 feet, all the way up the road to collect the water. This road project, we're not going to be able to meet that standard. We're gonna basically be using waterways. Most of it's going to sheet flow. It's gonna continue to go down the side streets such as First South and Second South. So it'll be a similar, runoff to the way that it's working now. So it's, another point I will make is that is a storm drain that was not even on the master plan. So there are projects that come up.
On 400 East?
The 400
Okay,
East.
okay. Just
So there
clarifying.
are projects that come along when there are minor drainage projects that might not even be on the list. So the point of the master plan is to try to, have a budget so that you can do a few projects every year. As you replace streets, that's the optimal time to replace the storm drains.
And that's what your drainage report entailed. It was about 1.5 every year. You're trying to break them out annually.
Yes, we're trying to keep up with the street reconstruction projects. Again, we don't have to patch the roads when we coordinate. Maybe just a quick, and maybe we're getting into the next,
Yeah.
which is fine. The next, or do you want to move on from the
But
audit and go to the next?
I think the reason why we're going there is because Gina's asking, as it relates to the audit, how does that impact the next item on the agenda? So it's
Yeah.
an important question.
Yeah, I mean, when I asked about the streets.
As it relates to the
I'm-
decision
Right.
that's ongoing here on this
So,
subject.
yeah,
I don't know how much was collected, but that's a good question.
So, I mean, we retroactively billed $399,000. If you look at the budget for the current year, we wanted to put nearly $600,000 into our fund balance, so we didn't have any projects. We were trying to use this rate increase to build up our fund balance for these future projects. We've pushed the rate increase down the road, so we're not going to be able to put $600,000 into our fund balance as we thought we would. But this retroactive billing certainly does help bridge that gap a little bit.
The balance is 442 or 475 on our last monthly report, which would have been end
Cash
of
balance.
January. Cash balance was the 475,
Sounds right.
when we're needing to do about $1.5 million in projects a year, or at least
So-
that's what the capital plan was.
I was gonna say, I mean, don't shoot me, because I know we don't really like to do this in our city, but we can always look for some loan opportunities as well, bonding opportunities, which could help to somewhat balance some of the, we do a 50% increase, and then for the next 12 months, see if Public Works can locate any low interest rate loans that may be helpful in getting some money into and doing some of these. Some of the loans don't really cover O&M. We'd have to, carefully look at our plan and see if this is just, if there's some growth or other things that would merit obtaining a loan. Sometimes you can qualify for a lower interest rate. It's not always the worst idea in the world to bond for something. I'm just throwing that out there as an option as we try to sort of shift and get these drainage rates up to what they should be. If after 12 months we don't have it, we could then say, yeah, we got to look at this again and maybe get these rates up. But this audit thing for me is more about trying to, I'm sure the business owners are never gonna look at this like we made this right with them. It's just not gonna feel that way, but I'm trying to find as many ways as we can to be a little bit considerate of the situation that we've put them in.
Well, I'm trying I agree with you, Councilwoman Hurst. I brought Kevin up and Nate at the same time because I guess I had an epiphany over the weekend as I'm sitting in a hotel room in Logan at the Youth City Council. And my wife calls and says, from St. George, she was there with friends and said, hey, two of my friends' cars were towed. And I was thinking, no, that's $50 to $100 to get it out, and they call and no, it's $370. No warning, no anything else. And at the same time, it had a staff member say to me, it's kind of hard to go out to businesses right now and ask them for money. And I started thinking, I thought, individuals, we love our individuals, but I never see individuals, rarely, stepping forward to give us donations for some of our events in the city or baseball, 4th of July. It's always businesses. And I just started thinking, we need to have an eye out more for the businesses. We really do. And I was just thinking that I don't know how to do a bait and switch thing. I mean, hey, eliminate the 4 years and let's raise the rate, because I don't know how that goes over as well too. But we muffed it, and I really don't know how we fix this, but there's got to be something done to show some goodwill to these businesses. Because we got a lot of them ticked at us. And when I hear staff members saying that, we're afraid to go out to, when they've supported us in the past, then we got to do something about it. I mean, we got to make it right somehow. And I don't know how to do that. I really don't, but because I don't want to say, hey, eliminate the 4 years back billing and increase the fees if we need that money. That's why I was trying to get you up here to say, how bad do we really need that money? Or can you do bonding? Can you do something else like that? I mean.
And Gina's brought up a good point that the $1.5 million is just capital out of that fund. It's not the O&M annually either.
So the proposal has been made to go back to everyone who has already paid and give them the option of the city will refund the money and will allow these people to pay over 4 years. So in my view, that's trying to rewind what we did as best we could to level the playing field, right? To do what I think a lot of us would have done in the first instance if we had thought about it more. And conceptually, I like that idea, but I want to think through the practicalities, because that is not something that we have heard staff weigh in on at all from an administrative standpoint or from a legal standpoint, and I would really like to hear from staff on that proposal.
Are you proposing that we reach out to the businesses and offer this, or allow them to come to us? Because those are different.
I was thinking more they could come back, but I do think that any business that has, I mean, maybe this isn't fair, but I was thinking any business that maybe has not paid, just to get back to them and say, hey, this is what was decided. You have until April 30th. If you want to do full payment, if you want to do 12 months. So.
Or 4 years.
Right, okay, so there are two separate things, though, that we're talking about. And my understanding is that we were looking at combining those things. One would be to look at those folks who have not yet paid and give them the opportunity to extend the deadlines and get the 15% or the 10% discount, or give them the 4 years to repay. That's great. The other half of this that I had understood that we were discussing was to allow people who had, to allow commercial owners who had already paid the opportunity to have the city refund everything that they had already been paid, and they could pick one of the other options than what they had received. And that second option that has been floated is something that we have not heard from staff as to how that would be administratively handled. And I'd like to really hear from it from a legal standpoint of whether there would be any concerns with doing that. So I'd like to hear from staff about that, the second part of that proposal.
So Shaylin, I just have a question, and maybe I'm only getting part of this, but I felt like that was what Lisa told us was her legal opinion, that she did think that way we're not playing favorites. And another thing I feel strongly is, I know it's not going to make staff happy, but the mistake we made in the first place was not notifying, not reaching out to people, which is the difference than it was done before, where we didn't have all of this problems. And so I do think everybody needs to be notified, because how fair is it just because I don't know, and then my friend says to me 6 months later, oh, well, you know, we did this, and they're like, well, I didn't know about it, so how could I do that? I don't think you're going to have very many people do it, because you're going to get your money back just to give it back to us again. I mean, unless you think you're going to make a lot of interest on it, I don't think you're going to have very many of them do that. But I do think that we've learned our lesson, and so we're turning around and doing the same thing that we did before. We're not notifying the people. So if we are going to do that, we do need to notify them by letting them know that, you know, this is an option.
Robin,
I don't want to do it.
I'm sorry, I
Go ahead.
absolutely agree with you on, if we are gonna do this, we have to
Just
notify.
let everybody know.
We have to. There is no other way that we can do that. And while I appreciate your perspective, I still would very much like to hear from staff. I understand your legal perspective, Lisa, is that if we're gonna do it, we wanna make it right, equal. I understand that piece of it, equitable, but are there other legal considerations that we are not thinking through from an administrative or practical side? That's what I would like to hear from you and from Nate with regard to, because I don't know how many people might come back and change their minds, right? Maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 50%, maybe 75% of people come back and want their money back and to pay out over 4 years. I don't know, so I'd really like to hear from staff.
Well, I think if you do this across the board, it's a policy that applies to everyone, then it would be difficult to challenge from a legal aspect. People will be upset, so it's more of a political issue. And second of all, yes, it's going to be a practical headache. I don't know if it'll be a nightmare, but headache. But the thing is, remember, we are providing these incentives, which was 15% if you pay in full, 10% over 12 years. The only thing we're changing is the time period,
12
you know,
months.
by a few months, 4 months.
Right.
But also, if you even go to okay, you can go 4 years, I think you want to add a percentage, you know, what are they going to pay over the 4 years? Because I think, unless you're saying, well, or you can pay over 4 years, you know, but maybe the 4 years is you don't get the 10%, but.
Well,
So
you
what I'm
did
saying,
never
let me
get
just
the-
finish this. What
yeah.
I'm saying is, I don't think very many people are going to take you up on redoing it because they wanted the 15%. Or
Correct.
they want the 10%. That's the carrot. And so I don't know that 4 months, they're going to be upset and frustrated, yes, but, or, you know, so I don't know. Maybe people will be coming in and saying yes, but I think legally, yes, I think you can give them the money back, because it's the same thing I've been saying from the beginning. We are obligated to the fund, the utility fund, and if the council makes a policy that says, no, we don't need your money right now, then again, we're obligated to give it back to them, and then they can repay it over whatever terms you say. What I'm legally concerned about is setting a new rule for the people that haven't paid in time, and I also think it's a very poor precedent.
Yeah, no, understood. Thank you so much.
And I would agree with Lisa that it will be a headache. It'll require a lot of staff time. We can certainly do it, so we can do it. I do think that, as Lisa mentioned, these businesses have already got these options. We're not presenting anything new, so I worry about confusing. If we were to send them another letter after they thought they already resolved the issue, presenting, you know, essentially the same items, but stating that they can seek a refund if they want to change their payment plan. So I worry about that a little bit, but if that's the direction you want to go, we can certainly do it.
I mean, as long as there is no legal impediment or legal concern, and acknowledging that it's an administrative headache, I am personally in favor of extending this option, because I want to try the best that we can to make it right. And I want to apologize to staff that our decision, I mean, you guys already went through so much time and effort to figure out this audit and the issues in the first place. And I just apologize to the residents because we didn't think about, we didn't have the forethought to know better when we were doing it in the first instance. But I also want to apologize to staff if this ends up going through, because I know that we're also now burdening you guys with having to deal with fixing our prior decision. So, but that's how I feel. I would be in favor of, and I would send it to every person, because I think that communication is key, and that is really where there was a breakdown in this process.
So whoever received an audit letter outside of those that were refund audit letters, it would have been just requests for the audit letters for payment those letters would go out to.
Well, I would send a letter out to everybody, and I would have 2 different letters, and there would be one letter that would say, hi, you have not paid yet, and here is your new options, right? The city council has decided, here are your new options. If you pay by April 30th, you get the 15% discount. If you pay by April 30th of 2026, you get the 10%, right? Like this new process that we're working, for anybody who has already paid, I would send a
It's a
separate
different
letter.
Yes,
And the separate
absolutely.
letter, right, would say, hi, thank you so much for paying. Hey, the city council has met, we've relooked at this, we regret that we didn't take into full account, like how this may have impacted you in an effort to try to make things as right as we can. We are making this new option available for you. You don't have to do anything. If you've paid and you're done and you want to be done with it, great. You're done, you could ignore this letter. But we want to make this other option available for you if you so choose. And I would send that out to literally either one or the other, depending on which bucket you fall into, and I would send that to every single person who received an original letter.
Hey, Shaylin, I love that. I'll hire you. Great job.
Yeah,
Do we need to put a timeline on response? So we need your response by X date if you are going to request the refund?
I think they just have to pay. They have to
well,
come
the
in
ones
and pay.
that have paid, if they want to do something
I would say by
different.
If you want to
by
do
April
something
30th.
differently, that's what I'm saying.
Get the same
You need to
deadline.
notify us by X date.
So I would be in favor of doing it by April 30th. Like,
Yeah.
if that's the date we're picking, I don't know, I'm just.
Right,
but-
because if they still want to take advantage of that 15% discount, they're not gonna really say, oh, can I have the money back for 2 weeks?
repay it?
Then I'll pay
Yeah,
it again in
exactly.
2 weeks.
It's somebody that's going to change their mind wholesale and say, yes, I do want my money back, I'm going to pay it out over 4 years.
Because maybe the HOA people that had to like completely cobble together money, right? And I was
Yeah.
persuaded by that comment to say, wow, I certainly did not think about that. Maybe they do for their residents go, oh yeah, we do want our money back because we can spread this out over 4
And
years.
so your terms for pay in full is still 15%, you're just extending the time till April 30th. 10% is the same, you're just extending the time to pay 12 months
Through April.
4/30/26.
Yep.
And what are your terms on the 4 years? So,
This is where Lisa was going, where I think we need to provide staff clarification, because we're just saying some vague repayment schedule over 4 years. Are we saying, hey, at a minimum, you have to pay 25% annually? So that at least you're paying a quarter annually, it could be more than that if you so choose, depending
well,
on
I'm
your
assuming
business
these are
schedule.
4 years equal payment plan.
Yeah, our
Okay.
software
Yes.
puts,
And
Yes,
that's fine too.
I
Just to-
agree.
To avoid ambiguity, I'm going to that direction, I just wanted to at least
Equal,
think through a starting point.
And Nate's gonna need to restate what he
yeah,
just
our software, when we put someone on a contract, it breaks it out per month. So they'll see 48 payments.
Awesome. That's what I would
equal
want.
payments.
Oh.
I like
but
that.
what's your interest rate for the 4 years, or is it just zero?
No, it
No
was,
interest?
there was no finance charge to
Yeah, I
it
say
in the
zero.
staff report, so it's zero.
Yeah.
And let me
But no
clarify
incentive.
with
Correct.
But no incentive.
You brought up the HOA group. With them and others, they were given an option to go further out than a year, recognizing that it would be difficult to come up with the funds. Everyone stated that they wanted to take advantage of the 15% discount. That's why we've only had 2 customers go on, take advantage of the 10%, the year-long plan. Everybody else that's paid has paid up front,
But at the
and
time,
nobody
Nate-
has elected to go longer.
But at the
than that.
time, did we ever tell people up front? Any of those people, we'll give you 4 years at 0% interest? I don't think we did.
I told them, at least if you need longer than that, tell us how long you need and we'll work with you.
And did we say a 0% interest?
Initially, in the first letter that went out, no. But then we met as council after that and decided to waive that.
But we didn't also explicitly state there was a fee associated either.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, I'm still inclined, even if not very many people take us up on it, I'm not sure that we were express at the beginning for people when this first landed and people were scrambling together to get the money, that they knew, hey, I could go out 4 years at 0% interest. And that very well may have changed how they handled the situation.
So an amendment to item number 3, Lisa, based off staff billing input is, are we saying now instead of annual 25% equal payments for 4 years, are we saying 48 months payments so it's just on their bill?
Yeah, I think if that's the way
I'm
our
comfortable
software
with that.
runs,
Yeah, that's how we've administered it.
Yeah.
with-
that
with
seems
Ann.
like
that's- I mean,
the
that's the
easiest
same
way for
thing.
you guys.
Okay.
Because I don't want to do something that is unnecessarily burdensome for staff either, and this feels like a good solution. If our software is already going 48 months and we can just throw it in on payment plan, great,
And the
fantastic.
4 years is the same for 30.
I totally agree with that also.
Okay.
430, 25.
Anything more on the drainage audit discussion before we go to drainage rate discussion?
Just thank you to staff again.
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you.
want to express my thanks to you. And I really appreciate hearing from our residents. I know that this is a frustrating process and like, I
And I
think
would
all
say-
of
I
us
would
have
say-
acknowledged, we've learned.
I would say, you know, we continue to thank the businesses to be patient with us as we try to make things,
Yeah,
lessons learned.
yes.
All right, let's go to drainage rate increase discussion. Kevin, you look like you're ready to say something.
Yep, I'm ready to talk about the drainage master plan. Very
Okay.
briefly, we've had several work sessions on this topic. Kind of starting back in about August of 2023 or so, maybe it was September or October, but, so I'll be brief. I don't want to try to guide the discussion, but more just maybe some bullet points. Our main goal in the master plan over the past 10 to 15 years, again, has been to make a coordinated effort between street projects, culinary water replacement, and storm drain replacement projects. Kind of back to the lessons learned, about 15 years ago, we overlaid London Road. It's kind of Gina's old neighborhood, but that was one of the worst streets at the time, from 4th East down to Bonita Way. We didn't have the money to replace the water line. We didn't have the money to replace the drainage system, so we overlaid the road. Well, the vibration from the compaction of the asphalt, kind of unsettled the ground. Within a year or two, we had several leaks, irrigation as well as culinary. It was really a lesson that was pretty tough for us to learn. So at that time, we started trying to make an effort to coordinate these projects. Again, culinary water. We also included the irrigation companies, both Dual Creek and Weber Basin. Storm drain, the sewer district, they came in and did some spot repairs as needed. So that's been kind of the effort, and it hasn't been perfect, but we have kind of learned from some of our mistakes. Another strategy that we've implemented over the years is to replace culverts, drainage systems in coordination with county and state projects. So when Main Street was milled and overlaid, they allowed us to come in and open cut, replace our culvert systems, as opposed to boring, directional drilling. So that saves the taxpayers a lot of money. That's a strategy that we've used. Down on the frontage road, we had some federal monies. It was a local government project to widen the frontage road. And so we came in before that project, replaced those culverts. So that's where the funding, sometimes the timing of the project, we don't know exactly when the project might happen, but we kind of need some funds available so that if the state comes in with a project, okay, hey, we can partner and we can make something happen. A project, let me go back, so 2017, the last time the master plan was updated, we had a list of 75 drainage projects. No later, I'll bet it was a month or two after we had kind of gotten that rate increase passed through. Project priority number 75, that culvert failed. It was on 4th East and Porter Lane. So I just give that as an example of, you know, city staff, we don't really know when these culverts might fail. We just know that they're old, we know that they're rusted out, deteriorated. Anyways, that was just kind of a story that we've shared in the past, but the master plan is basically an inventory of all the systems, and it's a tentative priority of when we think we might be able to coordinate or team with other projects. Maybe to the grant, and I don't want to, you know, we'll look for grants. Don't get me wrong, but in the past 15 years, we've received $12 to $13 million worth of grants for infrastructure, and then none of those have been for drainage. So I don't want to, you know, I don't think we should plan on receiving grants personally, because the state and the federal government, I don't see them coming in and replacing city storm drain systems. I just, you know, again, we can partner on county projects, we can partner on state projects where our water enters and drains into those facilities, but my recommendation is that the storm drain fund stand on its own. And if it takes a few years and we need to, you know, hold off on projects for a year or two, I really think, also as far as bonding, so we typically in the past have only bonded for projects that are growth related or impact fee related. So for example, the Chase Lane well, we bonded for that project. There is a little bit of risk in bonding for maintenance projects because, you know, you're kind of kicking it down the road. I feel my recommendation would be that you let the fund build up and kind of pay as you go. I think that's, unless you have an emergency. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I totally agree with you. I just think in this particular case where we have kind of gotten in a bit of a situation where we're kind of behind on, you know, the building up of that fund, is there any sense in looking at, I agree with you that normally we do need to pay as we go, but we haven't been doing that, and we haven't built our fund up, and I'm a little reticent just to, because we've already hit our business owners, and they're the ones that do pay the higher bills, right? Like, I mean, they typically have more land, so they're paying a higher bill. So if we raise more than 50%, it's an impact on them that they're already dealing with back paying 4 years of fees. So that's why I was maybe saying, could we look into that at this time, just so we keep our street projects going, because I'm worried about our streets too.
You're almost thinking it's a jump start.
Just a jump start, like, could we look into, would it be possible, Kevin, for example, in 2005, the city got funding for a water tank. They also did some storm drain with the Division of Water Resources. That was do you remember? Is it a 1%? It was an interest rate buy down, so we got some funding from a public source and some funding from the division, and I think that was actually a 0%. Maybe it was a 1%. I can't remember now.
They're very good loans, yes. I do remember us getting quite a few, or a couple few of those for culinary water-related projects.
But weren't there some storm drain?
There might have been some drain
items?
lines related
Just a couple?
to the
maybe not.
Chase Lane well, possibly.
Okay,
So Gene, just on your bonding thought, so
yeah,
the one, I'm thinking through it from a financial math perspective, and that is if you bond for projects that might occur in the next 1, 2, 3 years, you do those projects for that bond period, it rolls off, and then you just have to bond again, because are you gonna bond plus charge a fee to get that up? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're either, you kind of.
I'm not saying it's the best idea.
No, I know you're
All I'm
not.
doing is saying, hey, let's look at every, like,
Yeah.
in an effort to kind of, I guess, maybe mitigate some of this difficulty that we're putting on, you know, I am still of the opinion that we have to charge the right amount to maintain the system, and that really was 100% increase last year. So I'm just looking at, what are, like, let's get creative. What are some other ways we could look at that? I'm not saying that's a smart way to bond. I typically don't agree with that. I think if we can get it going where we're collecting fees as we go, it makes more sense. But also just in an effort to not
Kevin,
overburden our businesses and residents.
just so I know where we're, or at least the council knows where we're at on our capital plan, can I just get yes, nos to some of these that are on the list? So in 2024, we had 3 projects. I know the first one, Dual Creek's Box Culvert 400 West to Frontage Road, that has not been completed.
Let me hit, so that project, the county is permitted on finally. They have ordered the boxes, so they will plan to move forward hopefully this year with.
But that's now it was a 2024, now a 2025 project. But it goes to your point, piggyback on the county.
Yeah, so in our portion on that is only, we paid for engineering.
We pay
paid
about
for
a
the
third of it
permits.
based off of what you're projected here.
Yes, and much of that has already been paid for, so.
Okay, that's
we're
good.
at a
So
point
I guess
where
we
we're
could say
just-
that is done.
We're just to construction, so there will be some construction, engineering, and testing. That's something that Nate's budgeting for 2026. We need to get him some estimates on that, but,
Peachtree, the 1375 north to Main Street,
so Peachtree has been postponed.
okay. Briarwood, Bonita Way to 400 East,
Briarwood, what we did on that one is kind of more of a minimalistic effort. We did some dipstone outlets and let the water sheet flow, so that project is complete.
okay. Minimalistically complete.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
which worked out okay.
So then in 2025, the capital plan was the Dual Creek Box Culvert from Main to 400 West. So that's the other section of Porter Lane. Is that now postponed out to 2026 with the other one happening this year?
Yes, tentatively.
Okay. NOLA Drive was supposed to be a project this year, 1375 north to 1675 north.
Postponed.
Okay. And thank you, council, for being patient on this. And then the other 2025 project was Centerville Junior High, 300 East to Main Street, or combine the Riviera Storm Drain System.
Postponed.
Postponed. So and for the council's benefit, the reason I'm asking these questions is to kind of get a picture of where we're at. And my concern has always been, hey, yeah, it's a big fee. We're working through a drainage audit, which is different than the drainage fee increase. And if you postpone drainage projects because you've done the audit, we're putting ourselves in a potentially compromised position in terms of maintenance of our infrastructure.
Yeah, that's my concern as well, Spencer. I mean, that's.
Why were they postponed?
Lack of funding.
Yeah, we don't
We
have
don't
any
have
money.
enough funding in the thing.
How many of them are vital?
May I interject?
Go ahead.
May I interject real quick? Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Councilor Hurst, I appreciate the perspective. In fact, it's good to know that there's potentially a willingness to do that to catch up with our project. With the complexity of our system with water and street and drainage happening all at once, we'll keep that in mind, but it's kind of this evolving system each year, year after year, as we kind of reassess the timeline. So the dates that Kevin's provided are not hard dates, right? They're definitely recommendations or a guide to follow. But Councilor Hurst, your thoughts of we may need to consider those items. Definitely we'll take it under advisement as we start planning these projects for future years. For this next year, I think we're okay. We found a project that doesn't necessarily require us to make huge investments. So, but knowing that is very helpful. So we'll definitely take that into account when we plan our future project.
I'm not
just wanted to share that.
necessarily speaking, obviously, for the whole council. I just am saying there are some other ways that
You're
we
brainstorming.
could come up with some other ways to help assist with funding, especially if we did get into a situation where there was a little bit more need.
Yeah, I think if you, let's say you had a culvert that was the city's culvert that collapsed underneath I-15, and you needed to go and bond for an emergency project, I think that's a legitimate reason to go out and say, hey, we need $1 million, or whatever the amount is. We've got something that's really, this master plan, again, is more, okay, we have so many projects, we're trying to time them with the street projects. Is the storm drain on NOLA Drive going to collapse? Probably not, but
But the problem
it's
is if we
just more of
don't
a plan.
somewhat keep up with that wear and tear, we're gonna have more than we can keep up with, right? Like at some point you have to look at it and go, yeah, maybe it's not imminent right now, but we also don't want to end up with 10 of those all in one year because we've let it all go too long.
This reserve concept on the HOA, what we were talking about in our RDA meeting, you have to
Yeah.
kind of have a rainy day fund.
Did you
Right.
list these projects, because you have them out in a number of years, did you list them according to most important first?
What we did is we tried to list them along with the culinary water projects that were critical, so we have a map of where we have the most leaks on our culinary water projects. So I would say the street rebuilds and the storm drain, as far as the streets go, more follow the culinary water master plan.
Which follow the imperative needs.
The leaks, yes,
Yeah.
because that's, we can get a road that can get undermined and we can have a leak that can cost us,
Right.
$50,000 or even up to $200,000. So that was kind of the critical element that we looked at is, okay, where are we getting the water leaks, especially on steep roads? That, okay, let's go in and kind of sequentially try to plow through those. And it's a plan. And again, as Brant mentioned, that plan, we look at that every year. That's a living doc. We look at that, okay, do we have a leak? We had a leak on 1250 North up in that subdivision. So we shifted over last year and we did 1250 North instead of, I think it was Peachtree. So that happens continually year to year.
But regardless, conceptually, you have projects over the next
Whether or not
25 years,
yeah.
and whether you kind of leapfrog or have to prioritize one over another, they're still in that long-term plan. And I didn't speak anything about the sub-drain projects. I only
Right.
talked about the storm drain projects.
I know, I was gonna
So-
say, we've only covered one
Yes,
of
exactly. Well, I mean, it's not as
The rate
sizable, but they're
increase-
still sizable.
Yeah, the recommended rate increase included both, right?
Correct.
So-
And I was just stating the fact that if we have the $475,000 in our drainage account now, and you're planning on $1.5 million of storm drain projects plus, let's say 250 to 500 grand a year in sub-drain projects,
We're not,
I'm
we're
not sure how to
keeping up.
address it without having some type of fee.
Yeah, and maybe to answer the mayor's question a little more, from an engineering standpoint, we look at the design life of these systems. So a corrugated metal pipe that was put in back in the 60s, it's really met its design life. When we go to clean out some of those and TV them, there's no bottom. I mean, it's.
Right, they've
it's gone.
disintegrated, right?
They've rusted
Yeah,
out.
so, we're just kind of looking at the design life of these pipes and which ones are kind of due. Again, we could have number 50 on that list collapse next summer.
Sure.
We don't, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm looking at, and you can't get forecast necessarily, but this wasn't a drainage fee project, but the road leading up to your house.
Chase Lane.
When we had Chase falter and we had in January, had a $400,000 repair, and we found that it was a faulty, a $400, $1,000 part, whatever, and we pinpointed where all those parts were and said, let's get these changed to save us $400,000. So
Yes,
I
exactly.
guess what you just described, you're doing those same things with these, with the drainage projects as well too, to the best of your ability.
That's the mentality, and it is geared again around the culinary water projects because they are
That's
at
the
the most
pressurized
risk.
pipeline
Yep.
that is gonna cause the damage.
You don't want the tail to wag the dog.
Right, right.
So remind me, when we first talked about this, staff came to us and asked for a 100% increase, and we said, whoa, we don't think people can handle that, right? So we're willing to go 50%.
I don't know.
I think we actually agreed
I
that
actually
100%
said,
was
well, if
fine.
that's what we
Staff
have
came
to
back and
do-
said, hey,
100%.
Yeah,
That's right.
staff
We came
actually
back.
said, well, let's hold off.
let's hold off for a
Let's do
second.
50, and we said,
So,
that's fine.
which is great, right? But I had understood, maybe I am misremembering that discussion. The idea, my expectation was, we're gonna go with something smaller right now with the expectation that we're gonna be feathering in some rate increases
Yes,
over the next
yes.
several years.
That's
So
exactly right.
My
Yeah.
expectation was, like, this is the first one.
This is the first
and
of.
now
And then over
we-
the next couple of years, we're gonna try to catch up to where we think that we need to be in order to
Because it could
build
be
back
next
up
year,
that big.
50% this
the
year,
issue.
25,
Right,
25.
Yeah, that's
Right.
kind of what I was gonna push for, but now we've gone almost an entire year
Since
with
we-
not
yes.
our 50% increase.
Yes.
So, I mean, from staff perspective, I'm assuming you guys would like us to move forward with getting this thing put in place, right? I mean,
I was just gonna ask, Kevin, how would you feel if we stuck with the 50%, get it in place, and let's get some funding in there? My concern is that we are holding off on culinary water projects because we do not have the funding in the drainage fee. So if we do the 50% increase now and let it take effect on March 26th, in a few days basically, let that happen as we determined at our last, I guess on January 21st. Where does that put us as far as street projects?
I think it's a great start. What we've planned for this summer is we have the tank, so that's gonna take quite a bit of culinary water monies. We've
Okay.
shifted the street projects to more overlay projects in
Okay.
areas where we don't have utility replacements that need to happen. So we've already shifted for this summer, this summer's projects.
We aren't necessarily planning on any pipe replacement culinary water projects this summer because we're kind of focused on the tank.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, we could do that and then revisit this in a year.
But that was
and-
always the strategy to begin with.
Yeah.
Is to have the 50% increase, knowing it frankly might not be enough, but let's just see where it's gonna land and revisit it in another year.
So from my perspective, the only question then that we're really being asked is, do we want to move it forward and proceed with implementing it on March 26th? We've already made the decision as to what the increase is going to be. It's just a matter of timing. I'm not hearing any huge benefit
Has-
from continuing to delay.
Has staff's thoughts
don't think it's
changed at
helpful.
all in the last month on
What's
recommendations?
that? His staff what?
Has
Wait.
staff's thoughts, their recommendations, have their recommendations changed at all?
Cameron is shaking his head. I'd like to,
Yes or
do you
no?
have
Is he shaking it?
additional thoughts to that? Okay, you haven't changed your mind. Are you still comfortable, like, is the 50% increase, does that get us where we need to be?
Yes, I will say, something like that Riviera Townhouse, that doesn't involve streets. That can be pushed a minute, right?
Okay.
Some of these that are involved with the streets, I think we can be okay with that 50%. I mean, we're already this is a 32-year plan now, right? But we'll be, right,
Yes, it is.
it just is what it is. But I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Well, with the 50% increase, it's a 60-year plan.
Yeah, but.
Well, no, we've already talked, we're feathering.
We cannot
We're
leave it that
feathering.
way,
Right.
but we could maybe do
I
it.
think it's a good approach to implement what you've already voted on and then revisit, even if it's a 10% increase next year and you keep doing 10 until you catch up. I just think that's the mentality of, I've shared this before, but so we bid a culinary water tank in 2002, the same size that we bid a couple months ago. In 2002, that tank was.
Similar design, right?
The same exact tank, similar site. That tank 22 years ago was $500,000. That tank that we just bid a couple of months ago was 2.2 million. So even if if you just want to try to keep things the same, you really need at least a 5% or so increase each year. So you will be kind of playing catch up, but that's okay. I mean, we juggle the projects and we adjust and, we understand that
And my worry's always been if you juggle too much, you're gonna drop a ball. Like if
Right.
it's the
Right.
perpetual, kick the
Right.
can down the road and then you say, oh, it would have been a lot less expensive had we maintained our car properly, if we had lubed and oiled our car, as opposed to not doing it.
Would it be helpful to implement something similar with the drainage fund that we have done with the water fund, which is, we talked a few years ago when we did a major water rate increase that, hey, if it's between 3% and 5%, let's do that. And it seems like that's a little easier for residents to kind of.
It is, but I think we're still trying to conceptually
I
get
think
from
we're
the
still
50
trying
to
to
25,
play-
25, or 50.
I think we have to do
20,
that.
2010, or
but-
whatever else to
But
get
if
to
they
that.
had the same ability
Yeah,
to do that,
yeah.
you know, I mean, I don't think next year's the year that we're gonna say 3 to 5%. I think we probably have to look at more.
Right.
But I still think that thought process is still important in helping staff to be like, okay, well, at least we can keep up with inflation a little bit.
So I have a
right?
question. I'm a little late, but I was having trouble getting in. Part of this, when we talk about all these that we've pushed off and set back because we didn't have the money to do them, but also we've been told that we couldn't really do as many as we want. We don't have the staff to do that. And also, isn't there other things that need to be, it's not just the drainage that's holding it back. It's the water. There's a lot of them. Drainage isn't the whole reason all of those projects were set back.
And maybe I can speak to that a little bit. So, you know, it's been a few years ago, but we talked about, okay, we really need to look at culinary water, drainage, and streets. We are getting grants, so I would say most of the $12 million that we've received in grants, 90% of that has been, well, maybe 85% of that has been for streets. And so we are supplementing the streets somewhat. But yeah, the streets is kind of the third leg. You know, we've looked at culinary water. We've got a pretty good rate increase there. And if we keep it, bumping it up at 5% each year, we should be in pretty good shape. The drainage was the second of the three. And then we really do need to look at streets because we are underfunding our streets projects. So
By quite a bit.
hopefully that answers that question a little bit.
This is, I think, a conversation we've talked about in some of our budget sessions. Maybe last year we talked about that transportation fee. Is that, I mean, that's probably something we need to have a conversation about too.
I agree with a lot of what everybody is saying here. I think that we had good discussions about this budget, and you know, I do remember thinking that we needed to follow the staff's recommendations to double based upon what we were seeing in the budget. After hearing from the community and the business leaders here in our city, I've felt like we need to consider how that fee is going to affect them moving forward. Yes, it is important that we do this, but I am very concerned about putting people out of business, and especially in times that, quite frankly, are uncertain. And we just don't know what is going to happen in the next couple of years as far as costs are concerned, with energy, with just a whole host of factors that businesses need to take into consideration. I am supportive of the fee increase, the 50%, but as we move forward, I would temper that, and 25% and 25%, I think that we could look at spreading that out over maybe some more years, and as Kevin stated, you know, maybe we do need to take that 5% increase a little bit more seriously as we start moving forward, and then we can reevaluate when things become a little bit more certain in our economy. And in the city.
I somewhat agree with what you're saying, and yet the flip side of that is if we get too behind on this stuff, ultimately, the entire community will pay in the fact that some of this storm drainage is it does exactly what it says. It drains during storming events. We were facing potential flooding last year? 2 years ago. And frankly, our system protected, I feel like, many people from what was potentially looking like it could have been similar to 83. It didn't, I mean, the snow melt, like, looked potentially similar. And so I do think that, we have to consider that as well, that these are protective measures that do protect all of our landowners, buildings. Correct me if I'm wrong, you two, but I guess I'm saying, hey, we have to be careful about, I want to be careful and respectful of people's ability to pay, but also they're not going to be happy if they've lost, their potential business because of flooding that, was because we didn't have appropriate storm drainage.
As I look back at this.
I'm not looking at the list, so,
Exactly 9 months ago today that on June 18, 2024, we adopted the drainage utility fee increase. I think that not only did we not want to raise it 100%, but correct me if I remember incorrectly since it's been 9 months, but in respect of our businesses, we always want to make Centerville a place where business wants to locate. And we tried to keep our rates competitive, did we not, with other cities around us as well too. And so that's what we always got to keep in mind, Brian. I think to your response is just trying to be competitive in the place that they want to do business, and we're not double what Bountiful charges or Farmington charges or West Bountiful charges, that sort of thing. Every city has its different nuances, more or less roads to maintain, so I understand that. That's going to make a difference as well too. But as long as we're keeping that in mind, and I believe we did, then I think we're looking out for the businesses as well too. But so I don't know what else we want to discuss on this right now. If you're ready to move ahead with making a decision on. Right now, it's supposed to take place on March 26th in 8 days. Or if you're ready to move ahead with that or put it off further, or I don't want to rush anybody, but at the same time, I think we're starting to spin our wheels a little bit, so.
Discussion about what we do in future years is going to be important, but that's something I think we need to talk about in future years. Right now, we have a rate increase that our city council has already approved, like you said, 9 months ago. And the question, in my view, that we're being asked to decide is, when do we put that in place? We've already delayed it several months, and I'm in favor of moving forward and putting it in place March 26th.
Which we've already decided, right? So do we have an action to take, or are we just letting this?
I think staff
we're not
just wanted.
changing it.
Yeah, I think staff just wanted to be clear, given the ongoing audit discussion.
Yeah.
So they just wanted, that's what I understand.
I mean, Shaylin, I think you hit it right on the head. Like, let's move forward and get it in place so that we can, and then, let's just revisit it again in a year's time, and then we'll know a little bit better where we're at and what projects are coming up at that point.
And I think holistically, it could happen next budget cycle, because you're going to be looking at it in terms of streets,
Yes.
water, and drainage in the next year's budget discussion.
When is the 400 East project?
So that project is scheduled for next summer of 2026.
So there's a chance, I guess, one thing that you said that concerned me a little bit is that we're still doing sheeting and curb and gutter type storm drainage, which I'd love to see that not be what we did, but.
Yeah, a lot of the old parts of town, I mean, I would say even like pre-80s, most of the time the developers used waterways They used sometimes what we call a dipstone outlet, so that was a less expensive way of getting the water around the corner and sheet flowing it down the road. Now we would
I was
obviously
gonna
not.
say, but that's not really what we did on London Road, correct? A couple of years ago?
London
Like-
Road, we picked it up down at the stream channel.
Okay.
We ran a pipe up London Road. Okay, yeah. And then we discharged it into the stream channel. So.
But Kevin, isn't that what we're gonna do over on Parish Lane?
Parish Lane has storm drain systems that they will be tying in, on Parish Lane and 400 West?
No, Parish Lane up on the Morris property.
Yes, until Parish Lane gets reconstructed, and then we'll have to revisit if we have funds to run storm drain up that street. Correct. And that is on the master plan. That's a project that's listed.
Which year is that? That's not the 2026 I-15 Parish Lane, is it? I'm
No,
assuming
it'll be Parish Lane from First East up to maybe Third East or Fourth East. It might be
Oh,
from
to
Main
Canyon Point, Parish Lane 100, okay, that's 2029.
Okay. We are hoping to get a grant for that street reconstruction. That's something we're efforting.
So even this master plan does not have anything for 400 East that's scheduled to be reconstructed in 2026?
Correct.
Do you feel like we've got a sufficient plan for that area?
I don't know if we've had any complaints on First South or
I think
Second
it will
South.
work.
It's, I'm sorry,
I think it will work.
okay.
The waterways that we would be leaving are very minimal. They're not bumper killers.
Okay. I mean, obviously, I do appreciate staff's willingness and efforts to, it doesn't need to be lined in gold type of situation, just, we need to make sure it works, but also I appreciate that you look for ways to, keep it so that we're not overly burdening our residents, but I also want to make sure we're covering their needs.
I'm supportive of the decision we've already made,
Yeah.
as is in line with Gina and Shaylin.
Okay.
I don't think there's any resolution. There's not any new resolution, so, staff, do you have direction going forward? Council, you can always make a motion to say, hey, stick with the implementation on March 26th, or we can just tell them like we've just done, because.
I'll just make a motion that we stick with March 26th, 2025.
At the 50%.
50%.
Yes, as I think it was 2020, Resolution 2025-01,
Yeah,
approved on January 21st.
that's correct.
We'll no changes to that. Just leave it as is.
Second.
Hey, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's move forward.
Can I make a 10-second comment? Just remind council that your actions this year have actually increased the fee 63 to 64%. By the calculation, you got 11% there, now you're implementing 50. So you keep talking about the 100, staff is getting almost 2/3 of the money they said that you would need. So thinking forward, years going forward, we talked about 25 and 25 going forward. Please understand, you've done 60, 63 or 64 this year, so.
We've debated it a long time. There's been no increase for a lot of years. And we could have not gone back 4 years and just increased the fee more, so. Doing the best we can. Thanks, Rick. Okay, let's move on. Assignment and assumption agreement on the Centerville Corporate Park Lot 1 and Lot 201. This was discussed in the RDA meeting, but now here it is for us on, for council to vote on. Anything else we need to know further on this, or any other questions? Lisa, anything further?
No, as we discussed in RDA, staff just recommending approval.
Mayor,
I'll make a motion.
Yeah,
Okay.
either you or me, I don't care.
I was gonna say, I'll make a motion that we approve the assignment and assumption agreement between the city, RDA, JNS Papuro Ventures LLC, and Marketplace 24 LLC for Lot 1 and Lot 201 of the Centerville Corporate Park.
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Nat, unanimous. Let's go on to the item number 4 on the agenda, the sidewalk deferral agreement. Mike, I see you coming forward. Mike Carlson, our Public Works Director. Tell us additional stuff from what we have in our packet.
Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I'm going to interject real quick. I'm going to sign off if that's okay, if there aren't any questions for me. The Giants are up 2-1 if you're curious. But anyway, I appreciate the thoughtful discussion about the drainage and rate. It's actually really good. It gives us really clear direction as staff, and we fully agree with the discussion that was had. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your support.
Thanks, Brent. All right, Mike.
So before you have Kenny Knightman, he's got the property down 1175 West, 500 North. He's asked for a sidewalk deferral, which us as staff recommend that we do allow that at this time due to the state's going to be running some sidewalk in there, some shape, some form. We're not sure what it is with the roundabout. We just feel like it would be better to wait and more cost effective for everybody involved if we allow them to have the deferral. But I believe the staff's 100% behind this one. That is a good one to move forward with and allow them to have the deferral. So, any questions?
And it's consistent with precedent because we've done this with other 1250 business.
And it is in an area where it's under review by UDOT right now, so we don't know what they're gonna do, and to have him go put something in and then find out it's wrong and rip it all out, that doesn't make sense to me. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, there's not really any safety hazards there. It seems like the traffic at Parish Lane goes south. There is some foot traffic, but not that much. And there is plenty of places to walk if they need to. But yeah, I think at this time, it's more cost effective to allow them to have the deferral.
You're very persuasive.
Thanks.
There's a lot going on that potentially. like you
It's
just
huge. I
described
mean,
in there.
we've got the stuff on the west side of the road. We've got a roundabout there. We've got the 1250 West Trails, which was another grant that we got that's going on. And I just, keeping everything in line and doing good use of the city's funds I think this is just the right way to go.
You make a good case of good cause.
Agreed.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, if there's.
Go ahead.
Discussion. I'll make a motion that we approve the requested deferral of sidewalk and park strip improvements along the frontage of 1250 West and 500 North for property located at 1175 West, 500 North. And approval of associated sidewalk deferral agreement between the city and 1175 West LLC.
Second. And for the good cause that Mike has so clearly articulated.
Have a motion and a second, further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Appears unanimous. Thank you. You guys here for that?
Yep.
Thanks for hanging around.
Thanks, Mayor.
Taking a break and coming back, so appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Okay, great. All right, let's go to item number 5, municipal code amendments, maximum depth for cemetery markers and monuments. We got the man with the hat coming incognito tonight, coming up.
Mayor, thank you for listening for just a minute on this issue. In our cemetery marker and headstone ordinance, we did not ever have a restriction or a limit on depth of a headstone. When I say depth, I mean from the front of the headstone to the back of the headstone. And it hasn't been an issue for, up until recently, we've started to get some really deep stones, and it creates a pinch point. And I think, maybe you can go back, let's see, that stone is, so it sticks out a foot farther into that access corridor. So as we're driving along 6 inches away from a stone with a backhoe or a dump truck or whatever, and then all of a sudden there's a stone that's sticking out a foot farther, it increases the risk of damaging the stone or just not limiting our access to be able to open a grave and that sort of thing. So we've gone in, we've looked at standards and things, and we're recommending that we amend the municipal code to include a depth limit of 16 inches with a 6-inch flat ground level mow strip around it as a maximum depth for a headstone. We have a width and a height limit, but we didn't have a depth limit, and it appears that we need one.
So Bruce?
Yeah.
Couple of thoughts come to mind. First, when Brent and I were going over the agenda, I said to him, why can't we make monument companies have a dimension like you do with a door in a house to fit a couch in it, you know? I mean, obviously, they do whatever they want to do.
Sure.
Okay? And your pictures are great of the problem you're going to face. Second, that leads to the second discussion is when we were talking about putting in headstones before the fact, before passing.
Mm-hmm.
There was somebody had one in their garage, and we weren't allowing that. If somebody's already made a headstone, are we going to face this same issue all of a sudden with them that
No.
all of a sudden you can't install your headstone because we have this new ordinance in? I just, in my time as mayor, I've just seen us go one way with the cemetery and come back 6 months later.
Yeah.
And just because of one person, you know, has a death in their family, you know, and that's unfortunate, but we keep flipping and flopping around. So I'm just, I could see the concept, but.
Sure.
But we've done this with so many things in the cemetery.
Sure, and I am sensitive to that, and we have picked a standard that's pretty standard throughout cemeteries. It's not unique to Centerville to have a depth restriction of 16 inches of a marker that's above ground. And also, I don't believe we have any of those situations you're talking about where someone has made a stone larger. Part of this came to fruition because of someone, they call to get permission, especially if it's unusual. The monument company will call the city and, hey, what are your restrictions on this and this? And that's why I got the calls. They're like, hey, we've looked at your code and you don't have a restriction, so it can be as big as we want it to be. And I was like, well, hold on, let me talk to our city attorney, let's work through this and get something reasonable. I said, because this is not good for the person who owns the grave either, because it puts an expensive, nice headstone out at a high risk of being damaged, and then also, of course, causes problems for operations and risk for the city. So I don't think any of those concerns are ones that are needing to be worried about as far as making this change to the code of allowing 16-inch and less depth stones.
So if we do something like this, or just a second, Robin, I'll let you speak. If we do something like this, are we going to let monument companies know that, hey, this is our new restriction?
Definitely.
Rather than them going ahead and building something?
Definitely. I think that's pretty much a common practice. Every time we make a change to a headstone, our office staff has sent out notices to the monument companies and say, hey, just heads up, here's our headstone ordinance that has had a change. So that is a common thing that I know Cheryl did regularly anytime there was a change made to the cemetery ordinance. So,
Councilman Meekum, go ahead.
Bruce, I just want to make sure that there isn't anybody out there that already has one ordered. I mean, so if they can prove that they had it ordered before they show up with something, and we're like, oh, we changed our ordinance, now you can't put that in our cemetery. I don't know if that would be the case. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it's probably bigger than what 99% of the people have. But I just don't want to do that and then have somebody, I'm kind of like the mayor. I don't want somebody coming back in 2 months and saying, hey, my stone was just delivered and now they won't let me put it in. Yet when I ordered it, I checked with your city and it was legal.
As far as we know, and like I say, that's how this came to about, is one of the monument companies, before they approve or order the stone, they give us a call and have us approve the dimensions of it. And that's when I said, hey, I'm not going to say that's okay. And they said, well, your code doesn't say that we can't do it. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't allow that in our cemetery. It makes it so we can't mow the lawn around that stone, or it makes it so a truck will bump into your stone when they come to set another headstone or something. I said, I will turn it down, and I have that authority as the cemetery sexton, that when they bring it, I said, so if you order it and bring it, I will send it back and I won't allow it. I said, and I'll work with our attorney to fix that gap, in that loophole or that error in our code, and that's why I'm here with the city council to remedy that option. But maybe if you could go through those photos again.
And I guess to Robin's question, if somebody unilaterally just chooses to create a monument for which we are not aware.
So this is just this is looking at it down that, to just give you another example of the pinch point. But the other stone, if you could go to, it's a white kind of cream color. That's within our limits. That wide one is still 16 inches. So
that one is okay.
That one's okay.
That one's
so
compliant.
that's as wide as it can go, and it can still be that. So that gives you an idea that it is still pretty lenient as far as headstones go. And this is a relatively new trend. In all of our cemetery, we don't have any stones that are this deep until this new section where we're starting to see a couple. There were 2 or 3 that were. And so, I did some research, measured that one, looked at what other cemeteries have, and I think you'll find that the 16 inches is a reasonable standard that most all cemeteries have.
Mayor, there go your dreams of a big daddy headstone.
Although parks can have monuments as big as you want, we can do a statue, a full, we could do, I think like similar to the memorial, the Veterans Memorial, we do
Mayoral memorial.
It's got to be bigger than life, so you're already about 7 feet, so it's got to be
I know he
12 foot.
doesn't need anything fancy, just his regular height.
I didn't ask for this, so.
12 foot ponds, maybe.
It was initiated by the Parks Department. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Clark Wilkinson Memorial Park, I can see it already.
This one feels like a no-brainer
Yeah.
for me, Bruce.
Yeah.
What you're proposing seems very reasonable.
I think it will save the city some risk and some problems in the future if we make this change.
I don't want to intrude on discussion, but I'm happy to make them.
You bet. I don't think there's anything else.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2025-02, amending section 8.03.240 and section 8.03.250 to add a maximum depth. I'm going to add the words maximum depth front to back provision for markers and monuments in the city cemetery.
Second.
Now you can have further discussion. Any? All right, let's vote. Councilman Summerhouse.
Aye.
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 Bruce, for the record, you were equally as persuasive as Mike. You guys both knocked it out of the park tonight.
Wow. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce.
Oh, great. Now, Chief has to come up and be persuasive.
All right, let's go to item number 6. This is compensation schedule amendments, patrol officer in training. Sounds like a he show. Patrol officer in training.
I think it is.
Okay, so this we're proposing a new position within the compensation schedule to include an officer in training. So basically covering a new officer who is not an officer yet, right? We sent him to the police academy. He's not certified. He's not trained. He does not fit the job description of a police officer yet. And so when we hire him, we hold him to a standard of their job description. So there's been kind of this whole, and traditionally we paid an officer while they're in the police academy at about a 10% lower wage while they're uncertified. So this would fill that hole. And we have an officer starting here next week with us. He'll be with us for 2 weeks, then off to the academy. So, yeah, do you have any questions about
the schedule or the additional.
What is the difference in their duties during training versus after they're sworn?
So their duties in the academy will just be to learn. If you have the capacity to learn the skills and meet the physical requirements of the academy, whereas once they are hired, they're required to be able to do the actions. You know, be able to drive the car in emergency situations, be able to fire a weapon accurately and such.
And remind me, as it relates to academy, because I'm thinking of it as like school, what is the standard practice for other municipalities as it relates to officers in training, as it relates to compensation specifically?
We did have to reach out, and I sent a message out and found West Jordan, I think, had something similar. But when I asked the chiefs in the area, they were all very interested in what I came up with.
Because what do they do?
Right, because we've all just kind of sent officers to the academy with a job description that doesn't really fit what they've been doing. And just,
And I
But
appreciate
they're
that.
hired employees while they're in the academy, is that correct?
Right, we've been doing this, and so, yes, I appreciate the chief bringing this forward and saying we really need a different job description, because, yes, the job description is very different. You're just training, and you're not even a law enforcement officer at that point. And then when we hire them on, then they would be promoted to the police officer. And in my opinion, the 12-month introductory period would also start again at that 12 months. But this job is deemed at will because of the time limit, and also they're, given the time, they're still in introductory period. But I think it's a great idea.
and I think what other agencies, and we have always kind of done as well, is when they're hired on, you count on them being within that first 12-month introductory period, right? So if they're not meeting expectations of the job description, there's not really going to be a battle over the job description, because you can just terminate them if you wish. But I really do like spelling out the expectations for the officer in training, and really is traditionally has been somewhat arbitrary in the amount that we start them at in the academy. There's never been a set number, and just going back, looking over through prior records, it looks like 10% is about where it's been. So I really like to solidify that number as well.
Chief, can I ask a question? And I think maybe it was what Spencer was trying to get to too. Do most communities pay their police officers while they're at the academy an hourly wage?
Yes, you have to. Yeah, they have to be employed by a law enforcement agency in order to go to the post-run police academy. You can get around it if the officer is enrolled in a satellite academy run by a local college, but they would not be an employee, and you maybe have some type of agreement that, hey, once you graduate, we'll hire you at that point. But that's a very dangerous road to go around, because if they're a good officer and they're self-sponsoring, someone's going to pick them up, and they might beat you to it. And so what we've done in the past is if we have an officer in a self-sponsored capacity in the academy, in a satellite academy, we've hired them and got them to the end of whatever part they are in their training and remove them and put them back into, put them in full academy, or another option is keep them in the satellite academy and just start paying them a wage. That way they're now yours, because good officers are hard to find and valuable and can't pass up.
Okay, thank you.
And Lisa mentioned that with this position, it would be an at-will position. So if we were to bring on somebody in this patrol officer in training, put them into post, and they did not do well, then we say, thanks so much, we'll let you go. You are not cutting it.
Correct. Okay. All right, so yeah, we just ask you to approve the ordinance that would be amending this compensation schedule.
Just so that we're clear up from a budgetary perspective, though, what was their compensation previous? So we're saying it should be 10% below what our patrol officer one is. What was their compensation before? Because there's a gap there that we should be considering as it relates to budget considerations, correct?
Weren't you saying that's essentially what we were already doing? It just
Right.
wasn't codified?
Okay,
Correct.
thank you for clarifying.
This
that.
is gonna
I
just
didn't- I
create
missed that.
a set standard as opposed to maybe a
So from a
discretionary
budget standpoint,
arbitrary.
it's a zero
Right,
effect.
yeah,
Okay,
this does
thank
not
you.
affect the budget.
Thanks, Shannon.
Chief, for the record, you are equally persuasive to me tonight. You guys are all, you're all great.
We'll see how the new Salt Lake City Police Chief, from our community, asks for your input. Chief.
Yes.
No more questions, then we need a motion, it's ordinance.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2025-03, amending the compensation schedule to add the new position and compensation range for the position of patrol officer in training.
Second.
For discussion? Let's vote. Councilwoman Hayman, go to my right.
Aye.
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 Thanks, Chief, that passes. Just stay up here, Chief, just in case. We got summary action. We got the police department purchase request for a bi-directional amplifier. Questions for him, or you just want him to describe what that is?
The state required an upgrade that they're not willing to help pay for, or at least service very well. That's, I'm reading between the lines. Is this like a
I don't
break in
believe that
like?
upgrade we're required to do that, but it is something we have to do based on our reception.
I was gonna say, from a practical standpoint, we have to,
Right.
not from a technical standpoint.
Right. Yeah, I believe a lot of the new construction going in schools would be requiring it, but practically speaking, our radios are really struggling in the building, particularly in the basement, which is where we are. And so this, we'd previously arranged for this BDA to be ordered, installed, and then some new requirements came out that required an upgrade. So now it put it over the $25,000 threshold.
Was that in our budget?
It is not. This has been a recent addition and
So this
need.
would be a budget amendment item, Nate? Potentially, yeah, depending on
It
that.
doesn't sound
other
like we
things.
really have an option.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying from a budgetary standpoint.
Just understanding that we'll
just as-
see it as a
Yeah.
increase, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, if you guys have been watching the news at all, there've been quite a few articles and reports on the struggles of our current radio system, and we're trying everything we can right now to do what we can on our end while UCA figures out their end.
I love that we were able to identify a Centerville business to be able to purchase this from. Maybe we can encourage other police departments to also purchase from our Centerville business.
I actually had a conversation with the fire chief today about, because he's been also in talks with Motorola about their BDA and different options out there, because really you have the two, you have the Motorola and you have the Honeywell, and those are kind of the two main competitors right now for that equipment.
I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of a bi-directional amplifier for the police department from Precision Communications in the amount of $28,744.66.
Second.
Motion second for discussion. Councilwoman Hurst, going to the right. Why don't you lead us this time?
Aye.
Aye.
Robin?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Chief. All right, let's go to minutes. Let's go to the minutes of March 4th, 2025 work session, and March 4th, 2025 city council minutes. Is there any changes from what anybody saw?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the work session and city council meeting on March 4th, 2025 as written.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Okay, let's go to monthly financial report. This is not at the end of a quarter. This is February. But you do have a number of pages in there that Nate's provided. You got the boxes with the arrows on some highlights. But he is here if there's anything in particular you want to ask questions on before we look for another quarterly report next month. But is there anything from council to
Just because we were talking about earlier in the meeting, just our drainage fund balance is $498,276.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Summerhays. Okay, that's there for your information then. We'll look forward to Nate presenting the March one in a month. Let's go to the council report. This is Council Member Gina Hurst.
Parks, we have lots of fun things going on in Community Park, which is super exciting. Just a plug for, Bryce sent out a text Bryce, for potential donations for the pickleball courts. I actually did see someone, it looked like they were trying to play pickleball the other day. Are there nets? I was like, I don't know if they can actually play, but it did look like they were trying to play. And lots of kids excited about the playground. Looks really, really fantastic, so.
2 benches donated.
Sweet. Okay.
And 2 practice boards donated.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so people, I'm hearing lots of good feedback about that from members of the community, so that's exciting. Dual Creek, they'll get started up here in the next month or so. I don't have a report on anything from them. I'll let you guys know when they're gonna turn the water on. The sewer board, we just, I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, and it's probably better to have Matt Myers come and talk about this a little bit at a future, maybe a council, like a work session, but I'll give you just a brief overview. As you may or may not know, a few years ago, the sewer district started a plant called the Wasatch Resource Recovery. It is a plant where restaurants, grocery stores, they could bring their expired food products and they could be depackaged and put into this waste system that would then create natural gas from that. And the idea was to sell that natural gas. It has been a rather difficult to get the natural gas system to work. Some of it is the plant itself, just the system that breaks down the packaging was it had some rather intense labor issues. So they have been looking for a potential partner to help with that maybe has a little bit more knowledge. This is kind of a new thing. They do it in Europe, but it's kind of a new thing here. Anyway, they have signed documents with Opal Fuels. We looked at various companies to help with that, but they've signed an agreement with Opal Fuels, and they will be coming in and making some upgrades to the system, and it's a rather complex agreement, but hopefully they're going to make it profitable in the next 2 to 3 years, and that will be good for the sewer district. So if you'd like to know more about that, I'd be happy to work with Brant and the mayor and getting Matt Myers to come give us a little heads up on that and other goings on with also construction continues on the sewer plant upgrades.
When's he been here last?
I think it's been over a year now.
Been going quite a while.
Yeah.
Probably time then.
So I'm happy to
Yeah.
work that out if you guys will just let me know when you'd like him to come. He is always willing to come and discuss items, so.
Okay. Anything else? Questions for her? Anything pressing in any of your committees or boards? Anyone else?
LPC is done. I'm assuming
Yeah, I was
you'll
gonna
cover LPC.
Yeah, it is done. Yeah, session ended 2 weeks ago. Well, almost 2 weeks, right?
Almost 2 weeks ago.
So, yeah.
We had a couple little things at the end that got a little dicey, but I think we're okay for the most part. So.
Well, let's go into the mayor's message. Gina, which ones are that you felt got dicey? I'll let you
Well,
start
the
off on that.
overlay, I don't remember the numbers. I'm not good with the, House bill or Senate bill numbers, but the one where the state wanted to do and a land use overlay seemed a little bit of a seemed a little quick and not quite enough research into it. Thankfully, that did not pass, so
Yeah.
that was probably the one at the last minute that was a little concerning.
Yeah. Okay, my report. Davis Loan Fund in the last, bit since our last city council meeting, we approved, the loan fund board did, a loan to, kind of a Top-Golf facility out in Syracuse. So it's, not Top-Golf, but, same concept. The owner
Hot
of.
Shots, is it like the one in Big Shots, like down
Yep,
in St. George?
it's
Big
the
Shots?
same owner as Big Shots
Okay.
in, St. George.
Yeah.
And I appreciate a council member referring their neighbor to us. I passed on the number of the manager at the county. Wasatch Integrated Waste Management interviews for the retiring executive director position of June 30th from Nathan Rich. I was in interviews yesterday afternoon from 1 to 6 of 5 candidates, and we met again this morning and are going to do second interviews with 3 of those candidates. And then went to youth council training in Utah State last weekend, and I got there on Friday late afternoon, early evening for the dinner and the dance. The youth were quite engaged, and they always loved that part, and then stayed into Saturday for the closing session. Just want you to know we had some great youth up there and great leaders with Bryce and Haley. And I called Bryce on my way home, and I said, I want the youth mayor and maybe a couple others to report. And he says, for sure. So we're going to get them on the agenda to report what they learned up there. I heard a couple sessions, the session at dinner and then the session on Saturday morning, and kind of wish I'd been there all Friday, because I think that they put together a really great program for them that was very good for those that attended. We had about 20, is that what we ended up with? So, you're wanting to say something, I can tell.
Sure.
He's anxious. I got to say while he's coming up. So I stayed the night, and I get a knock on my door about 1 a.m. And I said, just a minute, I'm coming. And I go to the door, and nobody's there, but they've left 3 candies outside the door. So the next morning I says, hey, thanks so much for the candies. Who did that? And a couple of youth council, but we did Mayor, so it was kind of nice of them.
Yeah, you got lucky you didn't get the vegetables. Usually the
Did you
bowls
get
and-
vegetables?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you saw pictures of the Centerville flag with my giant face on it. So, I mean, very fitting.
Yeah.
The only thing I was going to say to echo what the mayor said as far as the classes, this conference is very unique because it is not ran by adults. Adults don't teach the classes. All the kids teach the classes, so it's very unique. We have 2 youth council kids that are on the state board. Because I'm on that state board, we get 2 kids from Centerville to be on that state board, and so they had an opportunity to present for the very first time in front of several large groups of peers, some being in the 20 group range. To the second week, I think we had 80 kids in each session. So topics ranged from mental health to networking to being more resilient. And so our Ella Stevens and Lindley Hernandez are the 2 that taught different classes at the conference. So that's what makes this conference really unique, is that it's focused on the kids, and we just basically we just make sure that, we don't go to jail and that we protect the kids and things like that. And so hotel police and, whatever it may be, so.
And great mentors.
Mentors, there you go.
Well, as it was set up there, 97% of it, that's the percentage we threw out, was planned by the kids. And there was an 8-member board, with 2 members of that 8-member board being our youth council kids, right?
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We go to Bear Lake in the fall for a 2-day retreat.
the kids sit down with the other kids that they've met one at a time. They say, hey, look, we've met with our youth councils from different places. So Bear River, Taylorsville, Harriman, Centerville, and one other one I can't, oh, Newton. And they say, hey, what are your councils facing? What are kids facing in different schools? They kick us out of the house, we leave, and then they create the topics, they plan the conference, all the days, all the sessions. The only thing we did was come up with the keynote speaker for both days, but other than that, it's a pretty amazing conference. The mayor comes every time. We'll extend the invitation to any council members that want to come. The kids love seeing you. They were most disappointed that the mayor's wife was not there. They'd almost rather have the mayor's wife more than the mayor on Friday night for the dance, because the mayor's wife is an incredible dancer, and so he just wasn't the same without her. So we truly missed her. Several kids, I'm sure, were very sad. So, but yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing conference. So.
Bryce, I know that you've told me this before, and I apologize if you'll refresh my recollection. How do you go about, if our youth are interested in being part of this amazing program, how do they go about getting onto the youth council?
Yeah, so we've kind of evolved this over the last couple of years, where we'll do kind of an open enrollment in April. We'll say, hey, look, submit an application of kind of an interest form, and then anybody who's interested will bring in, and we'll kind of do a group interview. We'll set up a bunch of tables in this room, and we'll have a bunch of different activities. We'll throw on the table like various props or crafts or things like that, and we'll kind of run through some exercises, and we kind of test them to kind of see who's going to be the leaders, who's going to be the rock pickers, who are going to be the followers, who are going to be the ones that are going to step up in a crowd or whatever it may be. And so it's kind of like a giant game of charades. And so it kind of helps us identify who potentially could be the youth mayor for the city. And then once Haley and I determine who potentially they could be, the mayor then meets with them one-on-one in an interview and kind of asks them some questions and things like that. As far as the youth board, I basically kind of look at kids who stand out from the crowd, or maybe just have this unique quality about them. And so that's how I select people to be on the youth board, because it's a huge commitment, more than just your once a month meeting and your service projects. These kids that are on the state board, it's probably a 5 to 20 hour a month commitment on top of what they're already doing, on top of everything else and on top of everything else. And so they go to that Utah State training 2 weeks in a row, back to back. And so that's even a bigger commitment to go to the conference twice. There's trainings, there's involvement. We go to other youth councils and train and provide support and things like that. So it's a really cool opportunity. This year we had a senior and a sophomore. In the past, we've had usually seniors as those state board representatives, but we're not partial to whoever it may be. But typically, we've had some of those state board members then become the youth mayor, or we're the youth mayor, and so it kind of rotates and things like that. So it's a pretty incredible opportunity.
So it sounds like this is going to happen in April. How do we advertise that? I mean, are we going to schools?
Yeah,
are
we
we
don't have
getting to the media platform that these young kids use, like TikTok,
Yeah.
Snapchat, and all of that cool stuff?
I don't know if the mayor can recall, but like the very first year I was here, we had our very first youth council meeting, and I think there was maybe like 3-4 kids that showed up. Yeah. It was a struggle, and then we kind of did a lot more advertising, and it just became word of mouth. And people just, not to toot our own horn, but we have pretty amazing youth council advisors with me and Haley, and so we can connect with the kids, and so it's just word of mouth. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just word of mouth. And we've kind of gone from this idea of, rather than accepting kids just one time a year, we do kind of a rolling open enrollment. Because the council's been so gracious about accepting everybody, we just kind of transitioned to that. And so it makes it so that kids come on mid-year. The only thing that we require is we put the responsibility on the youth mayor to interview the kids and say, hey, look, if you come on, here's the commitments, and then the youth mayor decides, yeah, we can roll this person in or roll them.
Which I like, because with a rolling enrollment, I guess, they might see other youth at the 4th of
100%.
July celebration or other activities, and they want to get involved, and you don't want to miss out on opportunities, say, well, wait until April, or whatever else that is.
And then they maybe forget.
I like that a lot.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I have been asked by a couple of youth, so do they just turn in a resume to you?
Yeah, so we just have an application process it'll go through Bamboo, It'll just be a link on the website or on socials. They'll click on it, we'll ask a few questions. We ask them to do a letter of reference from somebody in their circle.
So if they get on the website now, they can find a link.
It's not open till April 1st is when we do it.
Oh, okay, so they do need to apply in April. Okay.
Yeah, so-
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I am going to encourage, and I appreciate that we've grown this program through word of mouth, and I think word of mouth is awesome. But I would encourage us to consider a more formal or inclusive advertising process, because in my experience, I mean, it's been a long time since I'm in high school, right? People tend to hang out with the same groups of people, and so they may be recruiting, not intentionally so, right? But they're pulling in the same people, and use the word circle. They're looking at the people in their circle, and I'd sure like to make sure that kids that are outside of the circles are also recognizing that this exists.
I think we have a pretty diverse group of individuals. I mean,
It is.
yeah, the mayor knows. Very different backgrounds, races, genders. We have a very good mix. And I think
Maybe just
I like it because it's not the student body presidents. It's not those type of people. It's the kids that really care about the community. They're ones that aren't just checking it for a resume or for a scholarship or whatever it may be.
I'm just going to encourage us to be thoughtful, and as we're talking, if we want to keep the organic process, like really be talking to our kids to say, hey, we need to be catching a wide net, right? Like
Yeah.
to make sure that we are getting those kids that may really want to participate, but that just didn't hear about
And I think that's how the open enrollment has helped, because like when we have a service project, like with the Easter egg hunt, we encourage people to bring their friends. And then we just kind of, if they come back, we kind of mold them into the circle, and we're up to almost 35 kids in youth council. I bet we'll hit almost 45, maybe 50 next year. Now, they may not all participate 100%, but we usually get about 20 to 25 on a good meeting. And so, yeah, I love that idea. We'll try to think of some better ways to kind of expand that network.
Mayor, in your mind, is there anything we need to do as a council to be more supportive of youth council?
Well,
You don't have to answer it, maybe you can think about it.
yeah, I'll think about it,
Yeah.
but, obviously, they help us with a lot of the events that we're doing, the Easter egg hunt, Christmas, the fall festival, that sort of thing. Just, being aware that they're doing that and maybe supporting them
Yeah.
when they're doing that.
Well, when the youth council comes and presents from the conference, we'll recognize all the graduating seniors as well that night. So you'll get an opportunity to meet some of the outgoing. And I think we'll have a couple that will come back as alumni advisors. That's something we wrote into the charter. We've had some kids express an interest to kind of come back and be a graduating advisor as an additional volunteer, and we would gratefully accept them, just because sometimes it can be a handful for me and Haley to wrangle 33 kids, well, 34 if you include the mayor, so.
Yeah, and if ever it was helpful, because I mean, I want them to know that they can talk to us, right? And so like if you ever have informal things, or maybe one or two of us come and we're happy to kind of, I don't want to necessarily do a work session where it's recorded and it's like awkward and weird, but if it's helpful for them to talk to us, I mean, we can talk about how we got here, our backgrounds, what it's like being on city council. Maybe that might be interesting to them.
We do have something planned for next year where we have a couple city council shadowing days. We never got around to doing this year, but we would like to do some shadowing days where we coordinate with you for a regular council meeting, and a council youth council would sit with you on the stand to kind of get that perspective of kind of how things run, how you talk, and kind of that perspective. And so that's something the kids have expressed an interest in. And we have several kids that want to go into different career paths that each of you kind of fit the mold for. And so we will have them reach out to you as well. So
What you were sort of describing is mentorship, which is coming back full circle.
Yes, it
Just
is.
comment. I love this. It's like, it's complete.
yeah, so
Thanks for all of your good
Thanks,
work.
Bryce.
you're welcome.
Appreciate it. All right, nothing else. Anybody have questions for me? Do we have anybody reporting as city manager? Did Brent give anybody anything to report? Sometimes he does. He didn't tell me he had, but
Giants are up 2.
I didn't want to miss it.
I don't know who they're playing. That was
2 to 1.
I'm not aware of a closed session, so anything else, council? If not, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All right, we're adjourned.